I've got the latest with the Epstein files dump, and this is supposed to be the last of the entire dump of these filings. And let me tell you guys, if you haven't heard anything shocking or anything that really has caught your attention in the media over the weekend, well, there's a good reason why. A lot of these are still redacted and redacted to the point that I don't think that we're just missing victims' names here or survivors' names. Forgive my cold, everybody. I'm Lauren Conlin from Los Angeles Magazine. Go ahead and give us a like or a subscribe. This is our pop culture, daily scandals, and crime news podcast. I do want to play a little bit of a DOJ recording for you in a minute. And I find these conversations to be so incredibly twisted. And I think it's just because of obviously the content is very disturbing in a lot of the conversation. And this is over the summer. This is the July 2025 interview between Ghislaine Maxwell and Todd Blanche that I am specifically referring to. But she is so calm. Her demeanor is so matter of fact. Sorry, there's like a little thing in my computer that's making it look like sorry, it was making me look like I have a witch tooth. Got it. So she's so calm, so matter of fact. And again, we're just talking about really diabolical stuff here. But before I get into that, I want to point out some specific 2021 grand jury docs that appear to refer to Epstein survivor Annie Farmer. And if you don't know who Annie Farmer is, she is a survivor who basically, I want to say, was ignored by the FBI, so to speak. I mean, she's been talking about Epstein for decades, and if you don't know the story, I mean, he essentially recruited her while she was 14 at a summer camp in Michigan. It's called Interlock, and it's right outside of Traverse City, Michigan. My husband's actually from there, or not from Traverse City, but from Michigan. And we went to Traverse City over the summer, and it's a really nice area. Apparently, Jeffrey Epstein went to this camp in the 60s. So he was a donor, and apparently he and Ghislaine were visiting that summer, and that is where they met Annie Farmer. And also, Annie Farmer was from West Palm Beach. So that's how the whole thing kind of started. He was like, oh, you and your mom should come visit me in West Palm, whatever. So she reported Epstein's abuse in the 1990s, and she cooperated with the FBI, giving detailed accounts of how Epstein groomed her and then eventually assaulted her after meeting at Interlochen. And look, she provided a lot of information. She provided names, locations, and the clear pattern of behavior that echoed what everybody else is saying. And when I say everyone else, I mean all of his other victims, including Virginia Giuffre. But her allegations were effectively shelved. And Epstein was allowed to continue abusing girls and minors for years. So the newly released files and just some of the related reporting that you're seeing are just reinforcing that this isn't a case of misinformation. It was a case of inaction when it comes to Annie Farmer. So internal records and survivor accounts show that the FBI did receive early specific complaints, including warnings that Epstein was exploiting these girls and operating with the help of others. So for whatever reason, cases like Annie Farmer, they went quietly dormant. And survivors have since said that they believed that at the time the FBI was investigating, they thought that during that time, their cooperation went nowhere. And that could have been on purpose because they were told to go in another direction. I don't think that we'll ever fully know because, as I said, a lot of these files are still redacted. I do want to pull up something. Well, this is the recording I want to play in a second. But before we get to that, I want to get to a tweet that I did based on some of this grand jury testimony that I came across. And this is when an FBI agent was being directly questioned about, first it was the Annie Farmer case, because I saw that it was Interlochen, And that's pretty well known that Annie went to Interlochen if you watch the 2021 documentary on Netflix about Epstein. And by the way, if I wasn't clear on that, that is how I was able to identify that this specific grand jury doc was referring to Annie. So I opened this up and there's just a, oh, I was about to scroll it on my screen. No, there is something I clipped here, and it's referring to a flight where a young woman was 16 on a flight. So yes, it says it's a flight from West Palm Beach to New Jersey. Yes, and you can see she would have been 16 on the flight right at the top. And then at the bottom, it talks about another girl on the flight being 17 right at the bottom. And the passengers that are listed on the flight, J.E., G.M., E.T., Glenn, P.H., blank, P.H., blank, P.H., Manny, P.H., and blank, P.H. Okay, so you see a lot of redactions. Now, we can assume that possibly 2 redactions are Annie Farmer, perhaps, and another minor, and possibly a third minor, or possibly, I don't know, because another minor wasn't listed in this section, okay? And by the way, PH means phonetic, like the court reporter's typing this and they don't know how something is spelled, so they're spelling it phonetically. So after doing some research, I came across that J.E. is Jeffrey Epstein, G.M. is Ghislaine Maxwell, E.T. is Jean-Luc Brunel. Actually, let's go up to my reporting here. Jean-Luc Brunel, a modeling agent with ties to elite, found dead by hanging in 2022 in his jail cell in Paris ahead of his grape trial. Then we have Glenn Dubin, billionaire hedge fund manager, that's Glenn, and longtime Epstein associate. Virginia Giuffre alleged that Dubin was part of Epstein's inner circle, but he denies any sexual misconduct. His wife was also alleged to be friends with Maxwell. And Glenn, by the way, I note at the bottom, he was previously deposed in civil cases connected to Virginia Giuffre, but there were no criminal proceedings, and he was never, ever called as a government witness in Maxwell's trial. And then we have Manny, or quote, Emmanuel. I'm so bad at pronunciations, as you guys know. Khashoggi. He was the son of an arms dealer, Adnan Khashoggi, and he was connected socially to Ghislaine Maxwell. They attended high-end parties together. They ran in the same circle because of her father. And then eventually the same elite networks that Epstein frequented. And there is no evidence anywhere that Manny was deposed. So I'm kind of like, cool. It's all the same thing over and over again, a whole bunch of nothing. Glenn Dubin has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing when it comes to Epstein. And I mean, look, why is he flying on these planes? Does that make you guilty of trafficking minors? No, it doesn't. But it just, come on. It really makes me wonder. I mean, Glenn Dubin's a wealthy guy. He could have chartered his own plane as well. What's he doing riding on a plane with 16 and 17-year-old girls? Honestly, unless he has I don't know. I don't know, right? But yeah, I was born at night, but not last night. So keep that in mind. But as far as I've come with these filings, and there are so many, you guys, and the DOJ website is so slow trying to comb through everything. It's crazy. But let's get to the recording here. Want to make sure I don't. Oh, you know what? Actually, let's talk about this before I get to the recording. I just had it. Okay. Okay, let's get to this, the Chris Tucker photo. I found this to be really interesting. There's photos of Chris Tucker with Bill Clinton as well. Obviously, Ghislaine. I mean, Chris Tucker has not done a huge film since a Rush Hour since in 2007. And then the last big name film that he did was he had a small part in Silver Linings Playbook in 2012. I don't know. He's kind of just fell off, but like, this is wild to me. I mean, is there a reason that he fell off? Like, did he know that this was coming at some point? I don't know. But a lot of the pictures that I've seen circulating, like the Winnie the Pooh picture with Epstein, and again, Bill Clinton in a hot tub with young women, I I'm not surprised. I mean, what's going to happen, guys? Is something going to happen? Oh, no, nothing's going to happen. Literally nothing. And I don't mean to sound negative, and I don't mean to sound I don't know. I'm sick of this. I find this all to be a farce, and I find this all to be the DOJ just trying to appease the public because there's so many redactions still, and there's just not enough information. So back to this recording, what I found to be interesting, again, also just diabolical the way that Ghislaine speaks in general, but she starts talking here about how her father was just enamored with Trump and Ivanka upon meeting them, and kind of how this all came to power and came to play. And also, I want to point out that I also reviewed Ghislaine's proffer from 2025, which is in the DOJ docs. And what's crazy interesting about that proffer is that there's no guarantee and no benefit on paper. This proffer really only benefits the government. It basically says, hey, if you give us info and you lie about it, we get to prosecute you. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. What is she getting out of this? Well, we know when she was finished speaking to Blanche in July of 2025, she was transferred from that crappy Tallahassee federal prison to the cushy federal prison in Texas. So she is getting things, they're just not on paper. I mean, eventually, if they decide to charge someone else, she could use this proffer to try to reframe her role based on what she told the government. And yeah, could it benefit her in some way there if someone else is charged or whatever? Sure. I'm just not really thinking that that's going to happen. But call me crazy. But let me play some of this recording because it is very interesting to hear her very calm voice, very telling the story. Oh, did it just start all over? This is very annoying.
I'm going to ask everybody to put their name on the record. And I will provide from the time you met him all the way up until his death.
I met Mr. Epstein in 1991. I'd never heard of him or met him before, and no one in my family had ever either.
Hopefully you can hear
him, and I'll explain why that is the case.
Where did you meet him?
I had a girlfriend who I'd moved to America briefly I'd moved to America in 1990.
Okay.
Moved, that's a good word. I'd come to visit America in 1990. I had been running my own company up until that time, which was a company called Maxwell's Corporate Gifts.
Sorry, and because I lost the spot, she did start by saying she moved to America in 1990 and she met Jeffrey Epstein through a girlfriend. I know it can be hard to hear, but just hang on a minute because she'll get to the whole Trump thing that I just find interesting.
And I had also been working for my father at the time. I've had multiple jobs with him. I was in 1990. I was working with a new company of his, a new newspaper that he was launching called The European, and I was in charge of launching a magazine to go with the European. And I was traveling at that time from England to America because my father was looking to, he'd also bought Macmillan, the publishing house, and he had purchased the New York Daily News. And
purchased the Daily News.
It's true to say that my father always wanted me to come back full time and work for him, but that's a much longer story. I don't think we need to go into it this time. So, but I was always working with him. There was no escaping, as it were, to work for him. So, in 1990, I had come over to New York to help look at some of that. He was having some advertising issues with the New York Daily News, and in fact, Annette I may have met Donald Trump at that time because my father was friendly with him and liked him very much. And I think it should be said that he also very much liked Ivana because she was also from Czechoslovakia, where my dad was from. So I don't remember if I did meet him or not in 1990 with my dad, but I knew that that's how I knew about Mr. Trump.
And this was before you met.
This was before I met
Mr.
Mr. Epstein.
Epstein?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So I was already going backwards and forwards in America, and then
Okay. So you heard that, which I find to be really interesting, is that Ghislaine knew Trump before, really, I believe before Epstein did. I mean, I'm sure that they had possibly met prior to that, but it is really interesting that Ghislaine's father and Ghislaine, you heard what she said. Her father was enamored by Ivana because she was from the Czech, and so was he. And so they developed this family relationship. And I found that to be interesting. And then she met Jeffrey Epstein. So I don't know, exactly how that whole friendship came to be from there, but I'm willing to bet that Ghislaine kind of facilitated that, which is interesting because if you hear some of the survivors, and I've heard a lot of them, a handful of them say that Ghislaine is as evil as Epstein, if not more. But anyway, I have gone over my time here. So we'll continue this, but thanks for listening, guys. I'll be back tomorrow with another episode of LA Magazine's daily pop culture, scandal, and crime news podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already.